What is up, guys? Welcome in to yet another edition of the Ben Garcia Show, a special Saturday edition of the Ben Garcia Show where we react to big news or even just talking with a guest of all things Cardinals, Suns, Diamondbacks, Sun Devils. Listen, I could have went Cardinals this week. There's a lot of things going on over there, and they're probably the most entertaining team right now. The Diamondbacks went down in the depths of the dead and then decided to come rising back up, sweeping the Braves, but the Suns just hired a head coach. And I thought, who better to bring on the show than one of my good buddies from the Locked On Podcast Network from Locked On Cleveland Cavaliers, Danny Cunningham. Good morning, man. How are you doing, brother?
I thought we were talking about Josh Naylor today.
I do have to say thank you for Josh Naylor. How's Slate Ciccone doing for you guys?
I think he started yesterday. I don't know. I have not had the bandwidth, unfortunately, to watch a ton of Cleveland Guardians this year. I'll watch them occasionally. I do think he's in their starting rotation at this point. I will say though, they replaced Josh Naylor with Carlos Santana, who is one of my all-time favorite Cleveland baseball players. So I wasn't that upset with the news.
Well, listen, I was just thrilled. I didn't care who we were getting back, but once I saw the guy do the cradle the baby against Garrett Cole, I was like, this guy's in. This guy could bat 120, but I'm all in for this guy who's got stones of steel like that. You have been covering the Cleveland Cavaliers full-time this year. So who better to talk to you about the Phoenix Suns hiring Jordan Ott? Now, I'm assuming you don't have a degree from Michigan State. If you do, and the job doesn't work out with Cleveland, you could always go work with the Phoenix Suns. But I guess I would ask you this, man, because Johnny Bryant is the number one assistant over with Cleveland Cavaliers. It's kind of hard to justify that Jordan Ott is more NBA ready than Johnny Bryant. But I was telling people on our shows, not some of the other stuff that you were telling me, but Jordan Ott's your guy. He's a dude you really like. Why, in what world should Jordan Ott be picked over Johnny Bryant in a pecking order when it comes to coaching? What makes him more qualified and maybe ease the pain of Suns fans who are getting ready to wear their Spartan jerseys come Suns games?
So I don't know that it's ever as black and white as just more or less qualified, because I think that kind of does Jordan Ott a little bit of a disservice to say he's not as qualified. He's been in the NBA a super long time too. He's worked for some pretty respected organizations, or at least organizations that were respected when he was there. When you think about his time in Brooklyn, his time in Atlanta when the Hawks were good, he was on the staff with the Lakers a couple of years ago, and then obviously with Kenny Atkinson and the Cavs this year. So I do think that he's been around, he's done a lot. And I think so much of head coaching openings in the NBA and how they're filled is about fit, right? You look at some of the things that Johnny Bryant might do well, which I think he's a really good relationships guy. I mean, so much of the conversation with him in Cleveland, and this is unique to Cleveland because of Donovan Mitchell, but is the relationship that he has with Donovan, dating back to when Johnny was an assistant on Quinn Snyder's staff in Utah. And Johnny Bryant was somebody that Donovan Mitchell would name drop his first year in Cleveland. And that was also, I believe, Johnny's first year on staff with the New York Knicks. And then to have him come over, I do think was a good thing. But I think of him as somebody who is maybe a little bit more relationship based. And I think of Jordan as somebody who I think he has had to work a lot for what he's gotten as a coach in the NBA. And I think he's a very bright mind in terms of offensive strategy. And I think that is something that the Phoenix Suns looked at and said, we want to take that, because, I mean, it's not as if you can just give Jordan Ott all the credit for the Cavs having the second best regular season offense of all time this year. That's not true. But I think he had a voice in that. I think he was part of the Cavs having the offensive success that they did have this year. So I can kind of see how the Suns look at that and say, you know what? This guy is impressive when it comes to the offensive brain that he has. He's a no-nonsense type of guy. He's somebody that you could see building a really good culture. We want to take that plus some of the offensive stuff that he maybe had a part to do with the Cavs and bring that to Phoenix. I think that's kind of how you get there. I don't think it's necessarily a more or less qualified thing. And I think if he would have gotten his graduate degree from any other school than Michigan State, I think some people would probably feel different in Phoenix about this hire.
Yeah, it was different because, and I keep on, me and my guy Brendan Kling from Locked On Suns, we continue to try to beat the drum of Brian Gregory was not qualified. You are scorned from a GM hire for a guy that legitimately has no qualifications to be an NBA GM, and that leads you to believe Matt Ishbia is just the guy. It feels like Jordan Ott has been dealt a really crappy hand because of that, because he went to Michigan State, which, by the way, he just got his master's there. And yeah, connection with Tom Izzo, sure. But I always lean towards in life, like people, you and I both work in this business. How many times are you and I passed over for a job that you and I are more than qualified for, probably more than qualified than someone else, but they know someone else? It just happens all the time. This is the world. If you're going to get mad at the Suns, get mad at everyone for doing it. You mentioned the personality of Jordan Ott. I want to deep dive into that because one of the things that didn't mesh well with the Suns over the past couple of years was Frank Vogel. There was a story one time. The Suns lost by like 40 points, and he's trying to chew out the team, and the players are laughing at him. Like they don't take him seriously. And then Mike Budenholzer as well, telling Devin Booker to tone down his voice, like trying to ask him basically not to be as much of a leader as Devin Booker tries to be. The relationship aspect has got to be fixed between players and coaches. It almost matters more in the NBA than X's and O's does. Speak to Jordan Ott's personality. You've interviewed the guy before. The one interview that I saw you do with him, I'm going to be honest with you. The guy is meat and potatoes. And then it seems like just a protein-based meal. You're going to get all the good stuff, none of the bad stuff, but a little no nonsense to a degree where I'm like, this guy could scare me a little bit.
I do think that he's got that no nonsense type of personality about him. I think that's probably a fair way, at least in my interactions with him. I think that's probably a fair way to think about him. But I also look at what the Cavs have done this year under Kenny Atkinson. Of course, Jordan Ott is not some Kenny Atkinson clone, but I think things were very collaborative between Kenny and his assistants, the coaching staff, and the locker room. And I think that is something that you want to take a piece of if you're Jordan Ott. Like, I do think that having those relationships in that locker room matters. And, I don't expect all of the Suns fans out there to follow guys like Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley and Darius Garland on social media, but they all like reposted the news of Jordan getting the job with the Suns, and like they're very happy for him. And like that's my guy. And I don't necessarily think you need to read everything into that, but those guys don't have to do that. They do that because they have genuine relationships with him. They do that because they've genuinely bonded with this guy and seen him as somebody that is not going to be an enemy at times. As coaches and players can kind of form that relationship too. And that has never been the case with Jordan, at least not that I've heard anything like that. So I do think that he is somebody that is going to, I would be stunned if anything comes out about, the Devin Booker, Mike Budenholzer meeting, right? Like where he was asked to tone down his leadership. Like Jordan's not going to do that, because I do think it makes sense. And of course, there's always a course correction here when you're an organization like Phoenix, who, when you hire a coach, like you want them to almost be the opposite of the exact, or the previous head coach. We just saw this in Denver where David Adelman seems really different than Michael Malone. I don't think that's by accident, but I don't think you're going to see Jordan be this guy that's like, no, this is my way or the highway. I just don't think that's how he operates. I don't think that's how anyone from Cleveland's staff operated. And I don't think you can be successful in the NBA in any position, player, coach, executive, by ruling with an iron fist in 2025. I just don't think that happens anymore.
You mentioned some of those players that are just like reposting, it goes in terms of, it doesn't matter if they don't, but it does say something if they do. Johnny Bryant's relationship with Donovan Mitchell was very heavily documented. Dude called him a brother at one point. He does all of, if I'm not mistaken, Donovan Mitchell's pregame warm-ups, passing the basketball, working him out. Does Jordan Ott have that sort of relationship or fingerprints on one singular player's development and relationship that you could point to that you're like, oh, that was clearly obvious? I know Darius Garland posted him on his Instagram story, but Evan Mobley did it, and those guys seem like they were always really tight. So that says more to it. I have to keep harping on the relationships, because it has been so tarnished here in Phoenix. You need someone to be able to build a culture that you haven't had since Monty Williams.
Right. So Jordan doesn't have like one relationship that is like Johnny's and Donovan's. And part of that is he was here for 1 year, right? Mm-hmm. And Johnny and Donovan spent however many years together in Utah before Donovan went to the Cavs, before Johnny Bryant went to the Knicks. So like that relationship has been built over years and years and years. So I do think it's a little unfair. But yes, like Johnny is the guy that puts Donovan through his pregame workout. Jordan had a handful of players, and the most notable of which was Evan Mobley. Like that was, I think, if you want to look at his development, and of course, you have to give much more credit to for Evan to like go out and actually do the stuff on the floor. But I look at Jordan as somebody who helped Evan Mobley reach new heights this year. If you look at, and I just did on Friday's edition of Locked on Cavs, actually, I talked a lot about Evan Mobley and what his season was like. But if you look at the guy he was too, and I think this is a really interesting thing, and I think it's a good sign for Suns fans. If you look at who Evan Mobley was at the start of the 2024-2025 NBA season versus who he became at the end of it, like so much of the conversation in Cleveland was about, well, you know, he needs to shoot more threes this season. And he didn't start the season by doing that. He started the season by being an ultra aggressive guy. And I don't know how much of that was Jordan, how much of that was Kenny. All I know is that Jordan worked Evan out a lot. Like that was a guy that was around him a lot. And I do think that he helped Evan grow. And then by the end of the season, not only was Evan being more aggressive, but Evan was also in a place where he was shooting more threes, where he was truly taking the leap. I mean, this was a guy that went from, and of course, it was just his fourth year in the NBA. So it's a little unfair to say, no, he should have been a multi-time all-star before this, but he had not been an all-star before this year. Then he makes an all-star team. He's defensive player of the year. He's second team all NBA. Again, it's not as if Jordan gets credit for all of that because Evan is a special talent, but I think Jordan helped him along that way. And I think that is one thing, if you want to look at the player development aspect of things. And I also think it's important to say too, you know, I think it matters a lot when you talk about guys that can be player development guys. And I also, like, you hear player development and you think, well, that's for bad teams. And I very firmly push that. Like, I think player development should never stop. I think one of the ways you become a great sustainable organization is by being awesome at player development, where you can have young guys that are getting better every year while also making sure that your stars are still getting better. Because I think the Cavs would like to view themselves right now as a team that's really good at player development, and they won 64 games. And I think that Jordan had a hand in that. And I think a lot of the places he's been have been that sort of program. And I think that is a really good place to be too.
Do you think that there's a type, like just speaking to Evan Mobley, do you think that there's a type of player archetype that would fit Jordan Ott's scheme more? Like when you talk about Ott, there is a kind of almost like no one really knows what he is. Is he defensive? Is he offensive? People want to give Johnny Bryant a lot of the credit for the offensive scheme and Kenny Atkinson. You know, you had mentioned to me, like, Jordan had a lot of say in the offense. When it comes to archetype in a player or the type of, because that's kind of a hard question to answer as well. It's like, where more does he lean? Is he offensive? Is he defensive? Evan Mobley's kind of a two-way guy. So it kind of goes like, it's kind of, again, everyone would like 5 Evan Mobleys on the court at one time. But
that'd be cool.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe the Cavs be able to beat the Pacers if that's the
case.
Might. But is there a side of the floor that you're like, yeah, that's Jordan Ott? He just gets more giddy when they're talking offense or defense? Because I can't get a clear answer from anyone.
So I have gotten the sense that it's offense for him. Like in conversations that I've had, I think that he's somebody that leans offense. Of course, you know, defense is going to be important to every coach. And it is a really easy talking point for NBA head coaches. So if he comes out and says at his introductory press conference that we are going to be a defense first team, I think that's more of a culture thing than anything. But I think that where he really likes to be is designing offensive sets and getting in a place where you can find a lot of success offensively. And I do think that one of the challenges that the Cavs have had in the last 3 years is getting the most out of both Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. And the Suns are not in the same space, or, you know, maybe they will be, maybe they won't be. I don't know what that roster is going to look like. They're not in the same exact space just because of Bradley Beal's age. Like, they're not two young guards the way that Darius Garland is only 25. So I think it was a little bit more difficult in Cleveland to get, you know, a guy on the ascent basically to play as well as Darius Garland did while playing alongside Donovan Mitchell. And I think I look at that and say, well, what they were able to do with two young guards, or youngish guards. I mean, Donovan Mitchell's 28, so it's not as if he's super young by NBA standards, but getting the most out of that while also balancing the ability to let this 23-year-old 6'10" power forward center type flourish offensively too. Like, the Cavs offense was so good And I do think there was a world in which it could not have gone well just because there's too many cooks in the kitchen offensively. Like you've got Donovan, who's a great offensive player, Darius, who I think is a really good offensive player, and then Evan, who should become a great offensive player. Sometimes you can kind of have a little bit too much, I think it's fair to say. And getting the offense to work in a way where all three of those guys could go out and be players that, I mean, Donovan was first team All NBA, Evan was second, Darius Garland, I think he was the guard with the most votes not named an All NBA player. So having three player and Evan, of course, part of that is defense. Part of that is not defense for Donovan Darius. So getting the most out of those guys, I think, is a really big accomplishment for what the Cavs coaching staff could do offensively. And I think Jordan Ott certainly leans that direction. Like I look at him as an offense first coach, certainly.
Do you think, because like you and I can argue about this all day, and maybe we will, because it's fun. I do think there are a lot of things similar between Devin Booker and Donovan Mitchell. Sure. Mitchell, I think Devin Booker probably a little bit better of a shot creator, and I think Donovan Mitchell is infinitely more athletic. The guy can just take guys to the rim and
more
dunk
explosive.
On
yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Explosive is a great word to use for it. And I do think that's, but the most things like those two have kind of been conjoined at the hip. I will die on a hill that I think Devin Booker is a better player than Donovan Mitchell, and I'm sure you die on the hill as well that Donovan Mitchell is better than Devin Booker. But when you see Jordan Ott, do you think he can take Devin Booker and copy and paste the season that Donovan Mitchell just had? Because right now, like last year, it was Devin Booker's, like, I think the consensus was Devin Booker is better than Donovan Mitchell. And now it's, well, Donovan Mitchell's better than Devin Booker. And it's like, I know Johnny Bryant has a lot to say in that, but listen, Jordan Ott was there. He watched it. Is there a way you think that's what made Devin Booker make him his clear choice? Is like, you could do that with Donovan Mitchell? What can you do with me? And so if you're Jordan Ott, do you think he can emulate that kind of season? Because that right there is like, if you have a Donovan Mitchell-like player from last year on the Suns team next year, I do think you're talking about a team that is fighting to be in the play-in. And then if you add another good players, maybe they can make a run and be a 6 seed. You're just trying to be competitive while you try to get the ship back on tracks. Where are you on that?
So I think it's kind of hard to just like copy and paste Donovan Mitchell's season to Devin Booker, because the thing that I look at from Donovan Mitchell's season, and like, I don't think that should be the goal. I think Donovan Mitchell is a better player than Devin Booker, but I think Devin Booker can go out next year and have a statistically better season than what Donovan did this year. Because I think so much of what made Donovan great this year was not just what he was able to do in terms of his numbers, which were good. And like, he was first team All NBA for a reason. He finished 5th in MVP voting for a reason. But part of those reasons where Donovan was willing, and I don't know if Devin is willing to do this. I don't know Devin Booker. I can't speak to that. I don't know if there are going to be other players on the Suns roster that are worth doing this for. I don't know what that roster is going to look like. But Donovan Mitchell was willing to take a step to the side this year. I hesitate to say a step back, but a step to the side, and let Evan Mobley share more of the offensive load and let Darius Garland do more offensively so that those two could become better basketball players. Now, it didn't work out in the postseason. I think a lot of that has to do with both Garland and Mitchell too, to an extent, and Mobley were kind of playing on one leg in that series against the Pacers with the injuries they dealt with. But I look at that and say, given what Phoenix should have next year, if you were to take Donovan Mitchell and put him in Phoenix with Jordan Ott, would his numbers be better than what they were in Cleveland this year? Just like raw numbers, points, shot attempts, all that stuff. And the answer to me is yes. So I expect, and I'm not here to say that Donovan Mitchell is just some vastly superior player to Devin Booker. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's true. I think they're very similar caliber, similar players. So I look at it and say, success for Devin Booker under Jordan Ott next year probably looks different statistically than what success for Donovan Mitchell looks like this year in Cleveland. I do think that's I think that's something that he can replicate. Like, I think he can be very successful under Jordan Ott. Now, a lot of it is going to be, well, how well does he shoot from beyond the arc? Like, if Devin Booker shoots 33% from 3-point range the way that he did this year, it's probably not going to look as good as it could. If Devin Booker goes back and shoots, 38%, the way that he did the year he finished fourth on the MVP ballot and was first team All NBA, it's going to look really good. Like, I think a lot of it, because offensively, I would suspect the Suns are going to be a team next year under Jordan Ott that's going to want to shoot a lot of 3-pointers. They're going to want to probably be, I don't know where they were in terms of volume this past year. I should have looked this up. I didn't. And I apologize to listeners of the Ben Garcia show.
They weren't great.
I would imagine they're going to want to be like top 7, top 5 type team in volume next year. So if Devin Booker is able to shoot well from 3, that's going to be a good thing. Like, if he can shoot 38, 40% from 3, that's going to be a good thing. Donovan Mitchell shot 37% from 3 this year. That's a big reason why he was as successful as he was on 9 attempts per game. Can Devin Booker do that? If so, he's going to average around 30 points a game on the Suns next year. And I think a lot of people are going to be happy with that.
So you opened up my eyes there a little bit when you talk about the 3-point shooting, because that was listen, it's always been an Achilles heel of Devin Booker. People, I know this is stupid, but especially here in the Valley, they fall in love with Devin Booker's 3-point ability because that one year he shot 38%. And then when he was really young, he beat Steph Curry and Klay Thompson in a 3-point shootout, which means literally nothing. It literally means nothing. The Saturday night show, but it happened against 2 of the greatest shooters of all time. So people forget how much worse Devin Booker is at shooting the 3-point ball that he actually is. He's probably going to shoot 34%, 35%. 38% seems a bit high. 33% seems a little low. He's a mid-range guy. Is there a world where Devin Booker potentially has to change? Like, because Booker is an old school guy. Could that potentially not work in an odd offense? He gets He gets the line fairly effectively.
The right word.
Shoot the 3-point ball super well.
I don't know if change is the right word. I think evolve is probably a little bit of a better word, because Donovan Mitchell is a different player than Devin Booker, but he fancies himself a jumper from the elbow every now and then. And under JB Bickerstaff, who was the head coach of the Cavs before Kenny Atkinson, and Jordan Ott was not on staff here. He was with the Lakers during those years. Donovan would more frequently get the basketball at the left elbow, was one of the places. And he would kind of be in that triple threat position. One of the things that you would see when he was really feeling it, he had this super quick spin move that he could just get around any defender and get to the basket. Like, that is just not part of Devin Booker's game. But I do think that was part of it that I don't want to say disappeared, but was lessened this year. It's not to say that you can never take mid-range shots, but I think that in today's NBA, where attempts at the rim are valued so highly and attempts beyond the arc are valued so highly, it's hard to survive or be as potent offensively as somebody of the talent that Devin Booker should be, while having that be such a large part of your shot diet. So I would suspect they're not going to, and I know Kevin Durant has argued with people on the internet about this before. They're not going to try and eradicate the mid-range game from Devin Booker because he's good at it. You want to eradicate the mid-range game from guys who aren't good at it. But if you could take, I don't know, 2 17-foot jumpers that Devin Booker takes in a game and make them 24-foot jumpers from beyond the 3-point arc, is that a change Devin Booker is willing to make? Now, if he's good enough as a shooter, and I think he certainly is, I don't think he is Steph Curry, Klay Thompson level, as I know you don't either. But if he is somebody who can shoot 36% and take 2 more threes and 2 less mid-ranges, doesn't mean you're taking away the mid-range game, but you're kind of diversifying his shot portfolio. And I think that could be a good thing for him. I think that could be a good thing for the Suns. I think that's probably a really good compromise to have between him and the coaching staff, and just makes his team and himself better.
I want to just ask you really quickly about the competitive spirit of Jordan Ott while we're on the conversation of Devin Booker. I'll be honest with you. Sometimes I do question how competitive Kevin Durant is. I think he's competitive in himself, which means he wants to be like, he wants, as long as he is amazing. Yeah. Like, at least he can tell people on Twitter that he's his own, like he's his own GOAT. And same with Bradley Beal. I don't think the guy has a competitive bone in his body. Devin Booker is uberly competitive. I think that comes from, like, he's not Kobe. It's ridiculous. No one is. but it comes from his idolization of Kobe Bryant, where the competitive spirit, he hates losing more than he likes winning. Where is Jordan Ott on that spectrum? Is he just like because you mentioned before his personality, I should have phrased that question then, but whatever, I make mistakes too.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, a lot of them. Ask Kevin Durant that.
Yeah, clown.
Yeah, exactly. I would go towards where is that competitive spirit for Jordan Ott? Is he throwing clipboards, or is it just different? Is everything the same, never too high, never too low?
So I wouldn't say it's never too high, never too low. Like I don't think it's the Ricky Rubio mindset that I know you know a little bit about, being in
Oh
Phoenix.
yeah, my Spaniard
But
brother.
yes, but I do think that he is competitive. And I will call back to he was the Cavs head coach of summer league team last year in Vegas. And I don't remember what their summer league record was because it doesn't matter and I don't care. And neither should you, and neither should anybody. But Jordan Ott was the head coach. And I remember being in Vegas after a game and the Cavs lost the game. I don't remember who it was to. And Jordan wasn't upset because they lost the game, because nobody should ever be upset over a summer league loss, as I said. But you could tell he was frustrated with the way that they played basketball. Like he was upset that their process wasn't what it should be. And the results sometimes are going to follow the process. Sometimes they're not going to follow the process. And in summer league, I think the process should matter a lot more than the results should. And the results matter way more. Like when you get to the playoffs in the NBA for the actual thing that matters than what the results do. But I thought it was telling that he was upset about that. Like I thought it was telling that he was frustrated with the way the guys played the game of basketball. And I think that is the thing that I look at and say, this isn't a guy that's mad they lost because it's a summer league game and who cares, but he's mad that they're not doing things the right way. And to me, that is something that speaks to competitiveness. Like if you are not a competitive person, you will never, ever, ever be frustrated over anything that happens outside of a casino in Las Vegas, right? Like that's just what that world is like. So to see him be frustrated over something that happened in a summer league game kind of told me, okay, this guy's pretty competitive. Like this guy wants to win. Maybe he doesn't want to win the summer league championship and have to stick around in Vegas for a couple of extra days after having already been there for 2 weeks, because nobody wants to do that either. But I do think that you look at this and say, okay, this is a competitive guy. Like he wants to win. And furthermore, too, we see some coaches in the NBA that played in the NBA that are, like Jason Kidd comes to mind as a Hall of Fame NBA player, and he's a coach. And you don't get there without being competitive. But I also don't think that you get to where Jordan is at right now, having not been an NBA player, not some highly decorated basketball player, and not be super competitive. Like, I just don't think that you can rise up through these ranks, having not been a basketball and professional player, and not be super competitive and super dedicated to what you do. Because in order to get through that world without having the player experience, you have to find other ways to put yourself apart from the rest of the crowd, right? I think competitiveness is one of those ways.
First off, all that's really intuitive. I guess I would just say, you obviously have never had it so hard to where you're not caring about summer league games, because I remember early college years, I was watching the Suns play the Memphis Grizzlies in the summer league championship game. And you best believe when we were rolling out Tyler Ulis and Josh Jackson, that I was all into it, and they lost. So you know what? Maybe me and Jordan Ott got something there. Hey man, a final question here. Potentially, maybe something else pops up, but I think this is it. What was the reaction in Cleveland? Like for me, all the things you're painting me is he's been there 1 year, built good relationships with players, seemed a guy that you really liked. I'm interested in what a company says when they lose someone. Like Lockdown Podcast Network loses me. They're like, yeah, whatever. We can find some other loudmouth who Kevin Durant can get mad at pretty easily. But like we lose Danny Cunningham. Who else are we going to find to cover the Cleveland Cavaliers? I guess I would ask you, what was the reaction out in Cleveland? Sure, they're happy for their guy, but were they like, oh man, that kind of sucks? That guy had a lot to do with the day-to-day operations here.
So I think it's kind of, you always are going to be happy when somebody advances in their career, right? Like that is always the thing that's going to be first and foremost. Like it's one thing if the coach isn't good and like he's let go because he stinks, versus the coach is so good that this other organization wants to take a piece of what the Cavs are doing and try and emulate that. And they think this guy is good enough to be their leader of the organization. I do think that this is a challenge for Kenny Atkinson to replace Jordan Ott. Like, this is something that, and potentially have to replace Johnny Bryant too, if he were to get the job with the New York Knicks. And we really have not gotten a ton of information on that as of 12:30 Eastern time on Friday afternoon here as we record this. So maybe they'll have to be replacing 2 assistants. I think that would be a more difficult task than just having to replace one. And I would be saying the same thing if Johnny Bryant got the Suns job and Jordan Ott was not going to get the Knicks job. I don't think he would have been a candidate there. But you look at this and say, yeah, it's going to be something that's difficult to replace. Like, what he did was very impressive, but I also think it's a good challenge. It's a good opportunity too, because I talked about the diversification of voices on the Cavs coaching staff, right? And how it was a collaborative effort. I look at this and I think good organizations, which I think the Cavs are, like, I look at them as a good organization in basketball. I think that they like those challenges, and they view those challenges more so as opportunities to find new voices, to find new ideas, to find new ways to change things for the better. Not to say anything wasn't good enough, because that's not true, but to find ways to bring in new ideas. And I think that is kind of the way they're viewing this opportunity. They're super happy for Jordan. Like, if Jordan would not have gotten the Suns job, I hesitate to say the Cavs would have been thrilled, because you don't want to see guys, again, not advance in their careers. But they would have been very happy to have him back next year. Like, that would not have been, it's not as if, oh, we really hope this guy's gone so we can replace him. It's like, we're really happy this guy got this job and now we have to replace him.
Yeah, I would agree with you, especially when LeBron came back. I do think the Cavs have turned into I wouldn't say first-class organization, but right up there. Because the Celtics, the Lakers, Lakers maybe not as much anymore. These organizations have won multiple championships. Whereas I think the Suns, for a large part, were kind of in that Cavs tier. And then Matt Ishbia showed up and made everything all Michigan State. And now they've kind of taken a step back. You know, man, I could say it till I'm blue in the face. This guy deserves the job. He has earned it. He beat out other candidates. I really couldn't care less about the Michigan State connection. I lied to you. And this is why I said might be my last question, because it was dependent on how you answered the last question. You answered it well. We were talking WWE before the show started, right?
Yeah.
You are someone that you don't give a damn if the Suns are terrible next year. You are an impartial third party. Cut a 60-second WWE-style promo to Suns fans that just they need to be able to give, because that's the problem. I don't think they're giving the guy a chance because of the Michigan State thing. Can you talk some sense into my viewers?
I think it's totally unfair. I really do, because you look at who this guy beat out to. Like, it's not as if there were a bunch of no-name assistants that he beat out to get this job. He's deserving. He's been around. He's worked for some awesome organizations at some awesome times. I think he's worked for some really, really good head coaches. I think he's done a lot of really good things. And I'm not here to say that Jordan Ott's going to win Coach of the Year next year and the Suns are going to win 60 games and go to the finals. That's probably not going to happen. But I think if this guy gets a chance and they give him opportunity to develop as a coach, to help this roster develop, the Suns, by time Jordan Ott, however long he lasts in Phoenix, maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's 10 years, I think the Suns are going to have better days under Jordan Ott than they have had in the last, since they went to the finals in whatever year that was, 2021, I believe it was. They're going to have better days from the end of that finals under Jordan Ott than what they've had from the end of that finals before they hired Jordan Ott. I really, truly believe that this guy deserves a chance, whether he got this job or not. He was going to be a head coach within the next couple of years. He was a finalist for the head coaching job in Charlotte the year before. It's not some crazy thing. He got this job. I don't know if Michigan State had anything to do with it. Regardless of where he got his master's degree, Jordan Ott's a very good basketball coach, and I think he's going to do very good things in Phoenix. And I hope, Ben, next year, the NBA Finals is Cavs Suns, because what's better than Scottsdale in June?
Okay, well, it's a little warm. Yeah, for first there, I was like, oh, he's complimenting Scottsdale. I was like, yeah, okay. Anyways, I think that finals would be better if that's the case. It's just a one-on-one Matt Ishia versus Dan Gilbert. Let's settle it right here, right now. Let's settle it. Let's just, well, the other person, you know, we're talking WWE style. The other person leaves the mortgage business. Boom. If they lose.
Now talk about your
match.
subplots. Talk about your subplots of a final series. I think, I mean, the columns, the think pieces that would be written about this mortgage brokerage rivalry onto the basketball floor, the world's biggest basketball stage. I can't think of anything better.
I mean, listen, man, you got me stumped. I think that
the only thing I think that the world would prefer is if all the games are just played in Detroit, right?
In
East Lansing.
I was gonna say I don't know what college Dan Gilbert went to, but we'll just play him in East Lansing and whatever college he went to as well, and just 1v1 mano-a-mano. We're gonna play half court, 1st to 5, because we know either of these guys can probably go that long.
How do you not know where Dan Gilbert went to college? Where do you think he went to college?
Is it Michigan State?
It's Michigan State.
Okay, just so we're clear, I don't know of any other owner what college they went to. I only know
but that's part of the reason why. I think that's part of the
Which-
reason why there's this feud or rivalry.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think it would make more sense if he went to Michigan, and they're not even the real rivals of Michigan State. It's Ohio State. All right. Well, listen. At the end of the day, all roads lead back to Josh Naylor, and we still have him on the Arizona Diamondbacks. So even if Jordan Ott doesn't work out, we'll still just cradle the baby all the way home to a World Series title. Potentially. Looks good right now, but maybe not for the foreseeable future. Danny Cunningham.
Are the Diamondbacks good? I've not watched a game. I have no idea.
They're perfectly mid. They're 500.
Wow, 31-31. Yeah. See, I mean, the Guardians, are they in the best division in baseball? People are talking. I mean, 500, and they're 33-28.
Okay. Once you have Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani, Fernando Tatis Jr., Dylan Cease, Manny Machado, I could literally name an all-star team from the NL West. I don't know if you can do that with the AL Central, but listen, I like the Guardians. I know people sometimes make a big deal about that, and I'll probably get people get upset at me in the comment section below for calling them the proper name. But Danny, man, appreciate you taking time out of your day. Real D Cunningham on Twitter, Locked On Cavs, 92.3 the fan. I didn't even know that. And associate editor with Cleveland Magazine. Dude,
I have a lot of jobs.
Sleep? When do you sleep?
Because when I'm not doing all those things,
aren't you supposed to get married soon?
Yeah, August 9th. Very excited.
Dude, oh my gosh, you're just gonna love the married life. Just making sure she doesn't see me. My guy Danny Cunningham, man, appreciate you making the Ben Garcia show a part of your day. And for anyone that's watching, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, potentially even tell a friend about the Ben Garcia show. And I will see you guys on Monday. Thanks, Danny.
Thanks for having me, man.